Here is a quick review on the Buckstove Model 74. We've had this stove since January of 2023, so we're rolling on about 2 years now. Overall, it's been an excellent stove. Don't really have many complaints with it. It heats our home very well. I did own a Buckstove Model 21, and it had a smaller firebox. It wasn't rated to heat. I think it was maybe 1,800 square foot. It was a good little stove. The biggest issue I had with it was one, you couldn't put as much wood in it. I think the biggest pieces of wood that you can put in the 21 models is 18 inches side to side, and front to back had to be like 10 or 11 inches. So you had to cut your wood pretty small. But it done pretty good. When we would get down in the single digits, it had a hard time kind of keeping up with everything, so I ended up kind of overheating it a little bit. I loaded it full of locust, which is really good for an all-night burn, but it burns really hot. But I kind of overheated it, and it was still having a difficult time heating the house up and everything, so we decided to go with the Model 74. I can't remember the exact specs on it, but it'll heat like 22 or 2400 square foot. You can fit 22-inch pieces of wood side to side, and I think 16 or 18-inch front to back, so it's quite a bit bigger of a firebox. But I didn't think it would be that big of a difference, but it really is. But I really enjoy it. It's been an awesome stove. The other one, the Model 21, I could keep it 76, 77 in the house, and I was running it pretty hot. You would burn through the wood pretty quick. My biggest issue was if you burnt locust, it wouldn't burn it all the way down. You still had large coals and chunks in it that never would burn out. With this one, I think the efficiency is a little bit higher, not a whole lot more, but it does burn wood down a whole lot more to more of a fine powder. So to me, I mean, you're using every bit of your wood. When you have large chunks and coals, that's wood that's not completely burnt up. So I mean, I'm using everything that I'm putting in it, so it runs very efficiently. With this stove, I can load it up, and I can keep it close to 80 degrees in the house, which is a little excessive, but at the wood stove being in the middle of the house, the farthest ends of the house are kind of harder to heat just because it's further away, and our bathroom will get pretty chilly at times. But if I can keep it close to 80 in the living room, it'll be close to high 60s, low 70s in the bathroom, so it's pretty comfortable in there. The bedroom's a little cooler, but I mean, overall it does pretty good. And when we got this house, all we had was a heat pump, and our power bill was pretty ridiculous. I mean, I guess it all depends on where you live and how bad cold it is outside and everything like that, but I heard that the heat pumps nowadays were more efficient, and they may be compared to 20 years ago, maybe so, but they're still pretty expensive to run because it's all electric. and we went with a wood stove, and I mean, I don't regret it. It has been well worth it. It's a little more money cutting wood. It takes a little more work, a little more time, but I mean, in the wintertime, it is well worth it. I'm glad to have it. Don't regret it a bit. One of the issues that I have had with it is every so often you get it pretty hot and it cools off and everything, and the fan will kick off because it cools off enough. You build another fire in it a few days later and get it going again. The fan, my fan anyway, will start rattling. And I've had to take this front cover off, and there's two little screws that go in the side of the fan that hold the fan in, and every so often those little screws will start backing out and it'll make a vibrating sound. It's kind of annoying. You could probably take a little bit of Loctite and put it on them and put it back in. Probably wouldn't hurt anything. Haven't had the chance to do that, but really that's the only issues that I've had with it. Excellent heater. We've got, including bathrooms and non-living spaces, we're a little over 2,000 square foot. So I mean, it heats our house very well. I highly recommend a Buckstove. I love the glass door and being able to see the fire. Every so often it will get a little dusty and dirty, and you do have to clean it off. I do use a stovetop glass cleaner. In the manual it is recommended not to use anything abrasive to clean it with, so try to find some glass cleaner that doesn't have anything in it. It's just a kind of a gel or liquid with no grit in it. But I mean, overall I cleaned it today and it looks really good. Something I have noticed, if you do not run these stoves hot enough, it will build up a black film or creosote, I guess you can say, on the door, and you can pretty well crank it up and it'll burn it off. So I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but that is one thing to kind of pay attention to with these stoves, is if you're running it too low and it's black in the door, it's also building up creosote in the stove pipe, so you don't want that. I was actually told that I did not need a stove this big, that I would have to run it too low, that it could possibly be dangerous, but I mean, I run it high enough. It keeps it a little uncomfortable in the living room, but one, I run it clean. Two, I mean, I sweep the chimney every year, so don't really have a issue there. But I mean, it does very good. Something I've noticed with building the fires though, that little metal piece, that is the air inlet, and occasionally you do have to set sticks front to back to kind of pick the wood up off the bottom, and it'll let the air flow underneath the wood. If you don't, I mean, it'll just choke it out and you'll have a hard time building a fire. But once you kind of get used to it and kind of learn how the fire looks and everything, and when it isn't getting enough air, I mean, it's no big deal. I mean, right now I'm running it pretty close to low and it's burning goods. Another good investment to get is one of these magnetic thermometers to put on the stove. I'm running a little over 500 degrees, which is good. It'll get up to 600 or 700, but I mean, I never get it over 700. Right now, sitting in front of the stove, it's pretty hot. But days like today or nights like tonight, it's not too terribly cold, so I mean, it's pretty easy to maintain a good temperature in the house. You know, I'll let my coals burn out, and then I'll just throw a stick or two in here and there to keep it going. But I mean, it does very well. This is right above and to the left of the wood stove. We've got a bookshelf right above the mantel, but that's the inside temperature and the outside temperature. According to the thermostat over in the kitchen, it's about 78 degrees, but right here it's, well, 87 now, and about 30 degrees outside. Overall, it is done very well. Very minimal maintenance. One thing that I will have to replace within the next couple years, I'd say, is there are fiberglass, I believe it is, baffle boards in the top of the stove, and over time when you're putting wood in, if you get kind of a big piece, it'll hit the top and you can potentially break the baffle boards. I mean, they are kind of brittle, but that kind of holds your heat down low, and it prevents a lot of the heat from going out of the stovepipe too. So I may buy a few of those and just keep them on stock in case one of them does break or something, but I've had a few little chips and breaks on them, nothing major yet. So I mean, it's lasted 2 years. Maintenance on this thing, as far as sweeping the chimney, is pretty simple. Don't know how well you can see it, but there are little cotter pins that you can bend and push them out to pull the tubes out, and I usually pull about 3 of the tubes out. Pull the 2 baffle boards out, and there is a fiberglass, I guess you can say, blanket on top of them. You pull that out, and you can either sweep the chimney from the bottom or from the top down. Just shut the door. If you do it from the bottom, you get a lot of dust and smoke and stuff in the house, but if you're kind of careful with it and just take your time, it's not that big of a deal. But I mean, it does really well, and that is one thing with the wood stove that I was kind of worried about, was the creosote and catching the flue on fire, but haven't had an issue with it. Just keep it clean. If you ever have a wood stove, keep them clean. Sweep it every 6 months, depending on how much you burn. I usually do about once a year. We'll burn, I think, from usually about the end of October all the way until early April, maybe mid-April, and after that, I mean, it's not too bad. Usually I don't build a fire unless it gets under about 40 degrees, and then the house will start cooling off. If it's around 45, you know, I'll run the heat pump, because it don't have to run much to maintain it. But I mean, it does really well. We've dropped down into the single digits just a couple times since we've had the stove, and I mean, it really does a good job. I mean, when you can keep it 80 degrees in the house and it's single digits outside, that's pretty awesome. So if you are in the market to get a wood stove, I would highly recommend a Buckstove. I mean, they do awesome. Well, I had to take a little bit of a break. The GoPro kept turning off 2 or 3 times because it was getting too hot. That'll happen sitting right in front of the stove for an extended period of time, but I think hopefully I can finish it now. One thing that I would add, one of the reasons we did get this stove is in case we lost power. I would still have means of heating the house and everything, but here's something that's pretty big about that. You don't want to overheat it or really do a good burn on it if you are without power, because that fan helps cool the stove off, and if you do get it too hot, it will damage the fan. So that is something to keep in mind. Here's another view of it right now. I mean, it's still over 500 degrees, and it don't have a whole lot of flames in it, but has plenty of coals. But that is something to keep in mind if you are without power. I mean, you can cook on it and heat with it and everything, but you don't want to get it too hot. I try not to get it over 200 or 300 degrees or something if I don't have power. But that is one reason why we bought the Buckstove cook stove, and I'm going to try to do another video on it. And I have a few shorts that I've done on the wood stove and on the cook stove and everything, but I'll try to do a little more in-depth video on it as well. It's kind of been a learning curve. I've never run a cook stove or anything like that before, so it's kind of been a learning process. I'm rolling up on a year that I've had it, and it's again been 2 years since I've had the Model 74, so but I'll try to do a video on it. But that is one of the reasons why I got it. It doesn't have a fan. It's not really meant to heat the house, but it will. I believe it being a standalone stove, it heats as good, if not a little better, than the insert with a fan. But something that's very important to do when you are running a wood stove of any kind is ceiling fans. Keep it on a low speed. I reverse it. I have another ceiling fan in the bedroom. I have it reversed, have them both set on low, and that helps circulate a lot of the heat and keep it lower to the ground, so all your hot air isn't just rising and staying at the top of the house and having to work its way down. But that'll help you a little bit on your power bill. But I guess I'll go ahead and end the video. I'm going to try to do some more videos with the Polaris Sportsman 570. I've been clearing a lot of trails here lately and haven't done many videos, and I apologize for that, but I hope y'all enjoyed this one. If you have any questions or want to know anything else about the Model 74, please comment, ask, please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.